When the blind looks at the blind, it is only a wild imagination about the other. Isn't it? So, a homeopath should himself have good health, a good mental disposition, a good emotional disposition, and good vitality, so that he can see clearly the sickness in others. If a doctor is coughing all the time and you go to him for coughing medicine, cough medicine, if the doctor is sensible, he should say, go and find who gives medicine for cough, I will also come with you. The homeopath, he, according to Hahnemann, should be healthy. Healthy means the one who does not feel his sickness. Because mentally he is not conditioned by his sickness. Emotionally he is not worried about his sickness. Vitally he is active. Otherwise, you know what happens. When the patient narrates his problems, the doctor also becomes sick. A sympathetic vibration. Oh, I too have these things. So know that what is sickness is on the higher planes but never on the physical plane. Sickness is more in the subtle plane than on the physical plane. And when you give medicine, you shall not give for the symptoms. The symptoms are the consequences. The causes are elsewhere. Treat the cause. Slowly, the sickness is taken care of. That's the third principle. Fourth principle is, the function of the medicine is only to stimulate the life force, to awaken the life force in a particular direction which would meet the sickness. That means the life force of the patient itself cures the disease. You are only assisting the life force. Yes, healing is also in the same direction. Yes, you note the peculiarities of behavior. And a healer will potentize the totality of his sickness, and he transmits through his magnetic power an energy similar to the medicine. And that is what stimulates the life force, awakens the life force in the patient. Consequently, the patient is cured. In spiritual healing, there is no substance. In homeopathy, also there is no substance beyond 30C. That's why this is going to be the future science according to the masters. So the fourth principle is, medicines are given only to awaken the life force. in the desired direction. Don't get preoccupied with the symptoms that the patient speaks. And then the fifth principle is the totality of the symptoms of the patient and the totalities of the symptoms relating to the medicinal substance shall have to be perfectly matched, so that it not only cures the sickness but also causes disappearance of the symptoms. Then the next principle is, you should try to use the lower potencies to start with. And you should not repeat unless the healing process suspends. And if it has worked up to a point and did not proceed further, you repeat the same potency. If the same potency does not help, then take to the higher potency. You should not increase potency for nothing. You should not repeat the medicine for nothing. But this principle of starting with low potency is substituted in cases where the sickness is deep in the emotional and mental plane and not so much in the vital plane. If the sickness is deeper in the mental patterns and in the emotional patterns, working with 1M, 10M, 50M is more helpful. Because in those medicines, in those potencies, there is no substance at all, and the quality is potentized to be more powerful. Yes. This is how you have to work with them. If a person is hopelessly lazy, highly forgetful, excessively proud of his bad habits, (30C sulfur doesn't work, 200C doesn't work), you should think of 10M or 50M or CM. If a person who is very deeply suspicious of his life partner for nothing, I gave to an Italian Hayashyama's 50M. Next year when I met him, he was cured of it. He told me all that he spoke of his wife was not correct. And his wife is a very virtuous one. But a year before it was the contrary. Sickness. You build premise after premise on your own suspicion. How to cure it? That's where you have to go in for higher doses. Lower doses for acute diseases, higher doses for chronic diseases are the principles relating to the 7th and 8th principles. The diseases arise more from within the person than from the environment is another principle. It's not the environment that breeds diseases. Even if there is a contagion in a place, it doesn't touch a healthy person. It only touches the vulnerable persons. If there is flu in the town, not all the residents of the city will get flu. But those who are vulnerable only will get it. So there is an inbuilt strength but by which you can resist the environmental diseases, the seasonal diseases and contagions. That's where Hahnemann says that the inner life strength is more powerful than the outer environmental sicknesses. Then one more principle. If you have disease and you conceive children, it is most likely that those children also will have similar diseases. That's why it is said, you should have good health and good mental disposition before you conceive children. You cannot conceive children out of frustration. Then you would have sickly persons. It is very likely. The weakness for contagions is within us, and there is a way to overcome that. And then the 10th principle is, the humanity generally suffers from 4 miasms. One is sora, the other is psychosis, the third is syphilitic. These are the miasms emerging from the human history of thieving. Yes. Thieving others' properties, thieving others' persons, resulted in these miasms: soric, syphilitic and psychotic. And the followers of Hahnemann have brought out the 4th one. They call it tuberculosis, which is different, totally different from what the allopathy calls as tuberculosis. Tuberculosis in homeopathy means exceedingly fickle-minded person. The value of the morning is not the value of the afternoon. The value of the afternoon is not the value of the evening. It keeps changing. Psychosis, totally manipulated psyche. Syphilitic, arising out of excessive sex indulgences. Psoric, trying to desire everything that looks nice. Anything that is nice, I must have it. Just look at this picture of CVV. I have enough pictures. But immediately look to Jesus. Jesus, please pack this and give it to me when you come to India. He has so much love and respect for me, he does it. But then when I go home, I don't know where to keep it. So anything that looks nice for the moment, you would like to have it. That's the basic disease. Desiring for nothing. That is Sora. Sora and syphilitic put together will bring in psychosis. And all the three put together will make you a confused being, which is called tuberculosis. Miasmatic treatment is another big speciality of homeopathy. Lot of good work is done with these medicines. Families are saved from the idiosyncrasies of the persons. I can narrate many anecdotes. Yes. Then the 11th principle is, when you have a miasm active in you, you will have one kind of sickness or the other all the time. So treatment of the miasms will cure you out of sickness, the tendency to sickness. And the 12th principle he speaks is, it's a kind of reminder. Never try to suppress the symptoms by curing the symptoms. It is like killing the messengers. Yes. If you kill the messenger, you have no message about the disease. All the manifestations on the physical body are like the messengers. If you kill them by symptomatic treatment, that is treating the symptoms, not knowing what the disease is, you are doing greater harm to the patient than good to him. The patient may feel that he is cured, but you haven't done the right job. Because the patient knows his sickness by the symptoms. He doesn't see the inner distortions. You should get the insight into the inner distortions on the basis of symptoms that are thrown at. So he says, you would be doing greater harm by treating the symptoms. Be careful to collect the totalities of his peculiarities. And treat the one sickness which is the basis for so many symptoms. Homeopathy demands a substantial dedication for its study. And if you study yoga and homeopathy, your comprehension of homeopathy grows by leaps and bounds. Because in the science of yoga given by Patanjali, the psychology of the human being is well explained. The inversions the man suffers from are well explained. You can gain a better comprehension from the standpoint of yoga wisdom. So much for today. Thank you. Hearty fraternal greetings and good wishes. Even from ancient most times, there are certain cordial relations without which human life cannot progress in harmony. One relation is the parent and the children. It's important that the cordiality is maintained as between parents and the children. Edgar is smiling. It is equally important that there is such a cordial relationship between teacher and the student. And then, of equal importance is the cordiality between the healer and the patient. Because only through cordiality, that is the quality of the heart, energies of harmony can flow. All comprehensions can be from the head, but then they should be put forth to the heart. A person who can listen with heart is the person who is fit to be a healer. and all actions shall have to emanate from the heart via the head. Otherwise, the healing work cannot happen. The doctor-patient relationship was considered to be so sacred as the teacher, student, and parent and child. If this is missing, the society is in problem. We know today that none of these three are existing as they should be. Parent-children relationship is ceasing to be cordial more and more. Teacher-student is also in the same state. With education becoming more and more commercial, there is a distance between the student and the teacher. The teacher is supposed to observe the student, in all aspects of him. The parent is also supposed to know his child in all his aspects. So also a doctor is supposed to know his patient in all his aspects. It's not that some dry information is given and immediately a medicine is given. These three relations are considered to be very cordial and hence sacred. Money is not supposed to take a primary role in it. In an ideal society, a doctor does not demand fee. A teacher does not demand fee. Nor a parent would like his son to repay the expenditure he incurred on the child. Yes. If you go beyond the times of Hippocrates, the teacher and the healer were always one and the same. If he also happens to be a parent, it is a 3-in-1 position for the child. His father is teacher and doctor. So none of these three, the doctor, the teacher and the parent, is supposed to work for any commercial purposes. Because it relates everything to the heart. He serves the healer, the teacher and the parent, serves with love the child. Because they wish that the child grows healthy and constructive and becomes an effective instrument in the society. In a society where there is such cardiality, the teaching, the healing and the parentage, they happen as per the requirements of nature. Due to absence of cardiality with the human beings, these are missing. Even if we talk of the heart today, it is more a head talk than a hearty talk. Even about the hearty things we talk with the head only, not with the heart. Because heart is only totally preoccupied with emotions. An average human heart is filled with emotions, and this emotion is seen as love. Love is beyond emotion. So there is no place for love. It is alienated from the regions of heart. And the head only is using the heart quality also more as a matter of expediency, convenience. Yes. It all depends how much we are in need of the other person. Then we smile. Yes. If there is no need, there is no smile. You talk nice because you have something to do with the other person. Without this commerciality, there is no love. Imagine the love of a healer to the patient. Love is something that doesn't expect. Love does not expect. Love does not demand. Love does not hold. It enables friendliness. It enables freedom. And in such a freedom and friendliness, the cardial work is done. That's why during times of Ayurveda, it was strongly recommended that the doctor shall be a family doctor. Also a teacher, the teacher for that community, so that they know the patient or the student not only by his actions, obvious actions, they know them by their background. When a patient comes to you, you know his parents. What kind of sicknesses the parents carried? What kind of sickness the grandparents carried? What are their general habits at home? What are their general orientations in life? Today it is not seen as valid information for treatment. But it is very valid. If you know the parent of a person and his attitude, you can see already the seeds relating to it in the child sometimes. Not all times, sometimes. If the father is over anxious person, you can see this over anxiety in the child right from the childhood. You can attend to it much earlier than it is manifest in a deeper way. Likewise, if there is a tendency for cardiac problems in a family, you can guide the child into a better food and working habits. As the families, the lineage of the family not only brings in the wealth but also the sickness. Every family is a harbor of certain diseases. The disease also maintains its continuity. So if you are born to a certain parents, it is because you carry similar traits you landed in their house. So the traits of the parents are likely with you because you are guided to those parents by virtue of your own traits. Into a sick family, when a child is born, he carries potentially those sicknesses, very likely. There can be exceptions. A doctor who knows this can attend to the sickness much better. The general sicknesses of that family are known. This is how, if you have a intimate interaction with the patient, you clearly know the psychology of the patient, the mentality of the patient, his food habits, his habits of sleep, his attitudes in life. All these are all vital information when you are considering sickness at the emotional and lower mental planes. Yesterday I spoke that the sickness is more in the lower mental and emotional, manifest into the vital, and their peculiarities bring out the consequences on the physical. So seers in the field of health science have recognized this, and hence they thought that they should eliminate the sickness right from the root, from the seed. So it demands a very friendly, intimate interaction with the patient. Without which the cure remains peripheral. And Hahnemann also speaks of it in his organon. Today I thought fit to inform the regulations he gave to the homeopath as to how to collect information of the patient. Which is in tune with the principles of Ayurveda again. By this I don't mean that Hahnemann copied the principles of Ayurveda. It's not like that. Any person who is deeply concerned about humanity, into him the principles of nature descend. So he would know afresh. But what is known afresh is already known elsewhere. There is nothing new to be known. What is being known by us is already known by our ancestors. It is a revelation to us when we know. Because the knowledge exists at all times. The knowledge exists in the past, exists in the present, and will exist in the future. It's only one's own ability to tune up to it. Yes, any revelation is revelation to that person. So Hahnemann also, by virtue of his deep concern for sick persons, touched the intuitional planes and got the principles which were narrated as such in other ancient health sciences. He was himself a seer. So he speaks of 21 principles. Number 84 to 104 of Organon, which are essential for anyone who would like to work with homeopathy. Yeah, the way to collect information, data about the patient. A homeopath has to be patient enough to collect the data of the patient. No doctor can be impatient. In fact, while they study for the medicine, all their impatience would die. Because it is the most strenuous study among all studies. It is next only to the truth seeker's effort. A truth seeker, a disciple, the qualities he needs are also the qualities an excellent doctor needs. A doctor is supposed to be a very refined human being. A teacher is also supposed to be a refined human being. So there are many qualities as between the teacher and the healer which are common. Patience is his first quality. He cannot get irritated. And he should be available for the patient whenever the patient needs. I know Master Ike keeping his telephone on the table all the time, day and night. Anyone who is sick anywhere can talk to him on telephone. That is his commitment as a healer. And I never saw him negligent in his duties as a healer. To him it is a sacred work. He gave an example of how in ancient times the healers used to be. So he should have this patience and collect information. First thing is, you have to collect the history of the patient. Vis-a-vis the events of sickness that he encountered so far. You should let the patient inform you totally. You should, if he is digressing, you can bring him back to the main thought. But you cannot prevent the patient from giving information. When the patient expresses himself to a doctor, and if the doctor sympathetically listens to the patient, already the healing process starts. If you can listen with cordiality, the patient gets relieved by expressing his discomforts. And hence you should allow him to express all his difficulties and discomforts. Allow him to express the function of the body, the function of the senses, and if required, he should touch him. In areas where he feels discomfort. To know better what he says. And also to make him feel better with the touch. That is the first thing to be done. Then the second regulation is, once he completes the narration of his sickness, you have to repeat it to him what he said, so that when he listens, if he forgot any details, he will supplement his own first narration. And if he gives additional information, you have to make note of it. And then he has to make certain inquiries. Are the discomforts continuous? Or they are spasmodic? They appear sometimes, disappear sometimes during the day. There are people who become weak by 11 o'clock in the morning. It's a sickness, 11 o'clock sickness. They are the ones who look for a cup of coffee and pieces of biscuits. There is a medicine for it in homeopathy, so that he can save the cost of coffee and biscuits. There are sicknesses where a patient becomes inevitably very sleepy between 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Even if they are in a meeting, they doze. There is a medicine for it in homeopathy. It gives clue. Likewise, to some people, sicknesses are more in the night. Discomforts are more in the night, less in the day. To some, more in the day, less in the night. The times of the aggravation and amelioration has to be seen. Then he should also inquire, how intense is the discomfort? And how he tries to reduce the intensity of discomfort by his own effort. What are the methods he uses? Does he like hot drinks? Does he like cold drinks? If the tendency is lazy, they like cold things. If the tendency is overactivity, they like very hot drink. There are people who drink boiling hot coffee, and they need to eat hot food. Not only heat hot, but chilly hot also. Some tongues can accept spicy food. Even in the West. Yes. When they come to India, they ask, don't you serve pickles? In them there is that energy. There are others who illusion for any green thing in the food as chili. And feel the heart. There is no chili, but still it is hot to them. The feeling of chili is hot already. And they like cold things. They can't drink warm milk. It has to become cold. If you ask him, do you want cold milk or hot milk? He says cold milk. Now cold coffee is also there. The tendency is to prefer cold things to hot things. The tendency is to prefer winter to summer. There are people whose discomforts aggravate in winter. There are others whose discomforts are not so much in winter. Likewise, to some, summer is hell. When your tendency is an inert tendency, you cannot accept summer. And if your tendency is an ever active tendency, you cannot accept winter. To them it's boring if there is no sunlight. So these are all the areas of sickness. A healthy person will accept cold and hot with equal attitude. There is no special liking to that, special preference. So also summer, winter, day and night. Yes. And another thing which you have to find out, do their symptoms get aggravated if they are asked to take rest? Some people are more restless if they have rest. Don't you see such persons? They cannot take rest because of overactivity. There are others who are restless if work is given. It is also possible. Some are irritated if work is given, some are irritated if work is not given. You have to make note of it. It shows whether the general tendency is inertia or dynamism. You can also see this in horoscopes. Persons dominated with fiery signs, he is very active. They don't sleep, they don't let others sleep. Aries, Leo, Sagittarius, fire. Then water, Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces. They prefer to rest. They cannot really exert. There is not much fire. So like that, all the four elements, which element is dominating in this body can be seen. Yeah, that's how you have to interlink. That's where astrology becomes important for medical purposes. See in the chart they say, so many planets in fire, so many in water, so many in air, so many on earth. Suppose there is no planet at all on earth. It means he is not very practical. Like that, there are ways to know when once you start observing. So, do symptoms get aggravated by motion or by rest? This is what you have to inquire from the patient. Because the patient does not know that they are sicknesses. Don't cross a patient when he is narrating. Then you will come across his thought flow, and he may forget certain valid information to be given to you. If he speaks of pains in the body, you cannot just note as pains in the body. You have to be specific. Where is the pain? Is it in the head, in the shoulders, in the joints, in the stomach? Where are the pains? And to know the intensity of pain, you have to press over there and see. Because some patients overblow their symptoms. If they don't sleep for 10-15 minutes in the night properly, they say, I didn't sleep the whole night. You should know whether this man has a tendency to overstate or a tendency to understate. You should also inquire from him if he snores in sleep. He doesn't know, no. He doesn't know if he snores. You have to ask the lady or the man who sleeps with him or the parents. Does he snore in the night? The people who snore, they don't know that they are snoring. If they know that they are snoring, they don't snore because they get awakened. And by that you know if there are any distortions in breathing. Snoring is a distortion in breathing. And then you should also check up how he breathes. You can put your finger under his nose, not in the nose. And you can feel the uniformity of breathing. See, these are deeper things which give you a valid information. Likewise, you have to feel the pulse. Not all patients have regular uniform pulsation. Since we have lost the knowledge of holding the pulse and knowing, we use stethoscopes now. Of late, doctors don't carry stethoscope. In India, a doctor came to my house to check my mother. I said, don't you check up her pulse? He asked me, do you have stethoscope at home? See, the very symbol of a doctor is the stethoscope. That doesn't mean that they should come to group life with wearing the stethoscope. But when they are at work, they should have stethoscope always here. Check up at the back, in the front, to know the condition of breathing, pulsation, heartbeat. Do you have time for all this? How can you make money if you see all this? This is the initial inquiry. Then the first inquiry about the patient. Yes. This is the second part of the regulation. We have to ask the patient, how was he before the sickness came? What was the reason? To know the reason for the sickness, you have to go to the antecedents. Yes, the immediately preceding time before sickness. What was he doing? Yes. If someone comes with a horrible stomachache today, You have to ask, what have you eaten yesterday? When did you get the stomachache? Then just go behind. Did he move in rain? Did he move in wind? Did he exert himself too much? Did he eat much? What did he eat? Sometimes we eat that which is not agreeable to our body. That's how you have to inquire the activity of the patient preceding the sickness time. In chronic diseases, you have to take a longer history. And then the fourth regulation is that you have to inquire what was the medication before. Because what you do would be in continuity relating to it. The impact of the previous medication is already in the body. So you should know what were the previous medicines taken. Be it allopathy or homeopathy, there is already some action of the medicine in the body. If required, you may have to neutralize it. Naksvamika does excellent neutralization work. Suppose you are excessively medicated during the past few days or few months, and you feel nausea and discomfort in the stomach. Just take Naksvamika 30 or 200. It clears the side effects of the previous medication. Likewise, if you find that the patient is giving very confusing information, the patient has the right to be confused. To get the symptoms in an order, homeopaths first give sulfur. Sulfur rearranges all the symptoms and you can observe them better. That's where Hahnemann says, all chronic diseases are treated commencing with sulfur and concluding with sulfur. So we should know the previous medication. We should also know the previous sicknesses. That's why the history of the patient right from his childhood is taken when it is a chronic disease. Then the next regulation. The diseases arising out of previous medication are not difficult to be cured, he says, because they are not arising out of the behavior of the patient. They are arising out of certain extraneous factors working on him. Factors extraneous. What is important is to treat the inherent factors. With a few medicines you can clear the past effect of medicines. So that need not be given excessive importance. The medicines that the patient produces by his own behavior are to be focused more. The medicine, the sickness which the patient produces by his behavior should be given greater focus. Then you have to note in the next regulation is, that is regulation 9. Actually 93 you can take it according to the seriatim. You should know whether the sickness came from changes in the environs, changes from your heavy routine. On account of heavy routine, certain things may come. Change of environment also can bring things. Change of food, change of water, change of place. All of them can bring in certain discomforts. Yes. And you should also know if there were any injuries in the past. Yeah. Someone has backache, let us say. Backache can be from stress. If someone is excessively stressed, he gets backache. If someone is put to an accident, it may cause some kind of damage to the back. And if someone is excessively sexual, it can also cause backache. So you should know what is the reason for the pain by your own intelligent enquiry. That's how he narrates many things here. If it is due to excessive desire, you should know. Excessive food, and excessive drink, alcoholic drinks, he should know. And then he should also try to inquire if there is any conflict at home. It's important. These are the factors that contribute to sickness. Yes, you should know if there are any quarrels at home between the partners. Is the married life harmonious? Yes. Arising out of it, if there is excessive sorrow and depression. Like we verify the teeth of the horse, Hahnemann says also verify the teeth of the patient. The teeth are connected to the centers in the body. 32 centers in the body are connected to the 32 roots of the teeth. How are the teeth? have the sickness. Yes. The healthiness of the gums also has to be checked up. Or if there is any distortion to the teeth, or holes in the teeth, yes, that should be known. If there are any heavy economic accidents, in the sense, a huge loss in business, or a big insult in society, they can also contribute to sicknesses. And a horrible fear about the possible loss of a dear one. So this is how you have to get into the social, economic and domestic activity of the patient. These are all external causes which will contribute to internal discomforts and then diseases. Regulation 94, when it comes to chronic diseases, you have to find out how was it with his parents, with his grandparents, with his maternal, paternal uncles and aunts. That would also throw some valid information about the potential dangers the patient has. And generally inquire about his daily routine. What time he gets up? When does he take bath? Has he inclination to take bath? Has he inclination to wash his mouth? Because they are all important symptoms. Does he wear dirty clothes only even after bath? You are not supposed to wear the same underwear and banyan after a shower. Yes. Each time there is a shower, you have to change the clothes. At least the underwear, the inner clothes. Does he have such a habit? Is he generally cleanly or uncleanly? Yes. Has he a tendency to be secretive? Yes. Secrecy is considered as a disease. Transparency is considered as the state of discipleship. If there are secrets with your life partner, meaning you hide something from your life partner, there is a fear that she may know or he may know. That's why when it comes to doctor, you have to tell him everything if you want a right cure. Does he use more natural products or artificial products? Yes. Such of those are important for chronic diseases. You have to find out if the patient is, that is rule 96, if he is sensitive, oversensitive, are under-sensitive. Yes. If they are over-sensitive, if there is some palpitation in the heart, they already feel that there is going to be a heart attack. If there is a small extra growth inside or outside the body, there are people who feel maybe it is cancer. I know many patients who, when narrating their symptoms, half the way ask, I hope I don't have cancer. Why? Why that thought at all? Yes. It is a premonition arising out of oversensitivity. And you have to note, according to Rule 97, is the patient shy? Is the patient timid? Is the patient clear in his expression? If it is so, you have to help him. Certain sicknesses the patient may feel delicate to inform. Suppose there is a person who has a hydrocele. Hydrocele. The testis, hydrocele is water accumulating in the testis. The patient may feel delicate to inform about it. Don't worry about it, it is male disease. Hydro is water. The cell is filled with hydro, water. So they become big, like a pumpkin or a cucumber. So they may not be able to let you know unless you know that they are shy to inform certain things. Yes. Some say, I don't want to cause fatigue to you by telling all my difficulties. It is false decency. Before the doctor, you have to express all your ailments. And there are also patients who says, you check me, doctor, you are such a good doctor, you know everything. You know better than me. You should not feel, yes, I know better than him. You have to tell him, I don't know anything, please let me know. How would the doctor know everything without the patient telling? Yes. Some say, there is some discomfort in the body. What is some discomfort? So you have to make inquiry about it. Out of pride also many people don't inform their sickness, all their sickness, because it looks bad that the doctor knows that he is so hopelessly sick. So you have to ensure, if they have such a false decencies, timidity, shyness, in that case you have to make certain searching inquiries. Normally with a patient, there will be an accompanying person. He also tries to inform. We also have to observe him. If he is overblowing or because sometimes the accompanying person is more anxious than the patient. Especially if it is a dear one. Suppose there is a man who is in deep love with his wife. The wife gets some throatache. The man comes and says, "My wife's throat is choked." The doctor gets alarmed. If the throat is choked, everything is gone. She's not choking, she is not able to swallow so well. But to him it is horrible. So it all depends. That's where you need to, the doctor is supposed to be very healthy in his mind. 99. Hanuman says, it's easy to comprehend the acute diseases and is not so easy to comprehend the chronic disease. The patient himself cannot really give a good narration. This is because in acute disease, the symptoms are very communicative. In chronic disease, the symptoms are dormant. That's where you need to have greater inquiry. Yeah. Then in the 100 regulation, Hanuman says, please make a very systematic noting of all that you have been told by the patient and also all that you have noted by your inquiry, because this becomes your main chart on the basis of which you compare it with the related drug in the materia medica. So you need to make an exhaustive list, and then that would be the very basis for your treatment. See, as you keep working with it, it becomes easier for you. Normally, in a homeo clinic, there should be one person who does case taking. He should follow all the 21 regulations given in the book. He should make a checklist and then see what the patient is narrating. By that, some part of the checklist is covered. The unchecked part You have to ask questions and get information. And you should not ask for information through a leading question. If you make a leading question, he says sometimes yes. You have to ask him what his discomfort is. Help him to express his discomfort. Then yourself supplying an answer to him. A leading question is a question that supplies an answer in it. Yes. Don't make any suggestive questions. Only keep asking him. And don't ask questions with a view to get a particular answer from him. That's also important. So on that basis you will make a list. And from that list you shall start working. When it comes to contagion, normally they describe for this contagion, this is the medicine. Yes. If you find that the symptoms are the same, you can decide a common medicine because it's not a chronic thing. And then inform the society as such. By taking this medicine, you can prevent the contagion. Conjunctivitis, where the eyes become red. Gastroenteritis, influenza, and such other ailments. In India till date, the homeopaths published these are the medicines you take to prevent these contagions. That's how the Homeo Association itself publishes. And in 101 rule, Hanuman says, keeping the welfare of the society in mind, you give out to the society at large the related homeo medicine. But if a particular patient comes to you with his own sickness mixed up with the contagion, you have to go by the order of priority and then treat him. So this is how he mentions that you have to observe the patient and then look for the similar medicine in the materia medica. The problem you encounter at that point is many symptoms tally with many medicines. Then you have to see what are the leading symptoms, most important symptoms. Yes. and then you will come to a group of medicines. And you have to make a thorough study of those medicines and start working with them. The dosage is, as I said yesterday, there are two thoughts prevailing in India. To start with 30C or straight away start with 200C. Because 200C has no substance of the medicine. 30C has substance of the medicine. If you give 30C, you can repeat the dose or change the dose according to necessity within 12 to 24 hours. If it is 200C, you cannot give another dose before 24 hours. When you are fairly certain that this is the medicine, you can straight away give 200C. Otherwise, start with 30C. If it is working, you can allow it to work. When the discomfort is reducing, don't introduce again medicine. If it is reduced but not completely eliminated, you can repeat the same potency. It may continue to cure. Like that, a medicine can be repeated 3 times maximum. By that time, if complete cure does not happen, but some cure has taken place, go for a higher potency, 200. Your scope to treat is much when you start at a lower potency like 30. D potencies are not recommended. Please remember this. Only for tonics D potencies are given. Like ferrum phos, caliphos, magnesia phos. Certain tissue salts can be given in D potencies. If you give medicinal drugs in D potency, you are introducing substance, medical substance into the patient. It is not recommended. Yes. Mostly in the West, they start with D potencies. They think already 30C or 200 is very high. The higher the potency, the lower is the medical substance. And in chronic diseases, cures are possible only when you have the conviction and courage to use 1M, 10M. Otherwise, deeper actions cannot take place in the emotional and lower mental planes. So you should know the frequency of dosage and also know the degree of potency that you have to use. Hahnemann says elsewhere, when he speaks of the drugs, that the potency of your medicine should be more than the potency of the disease in the patient. If it is less than the potency of the disease, it does not cause right cure. So that's how the work relating to homeopathy has to be done. For that reason, a homeopath should be thorough with organon and thorough with materia medica. If you are not thorough with these two classic books, you are not doing a right job. You are considered as a childish person trying to handle the life force in the other. Handling life force is the most responsible activity and most sacred activity. So one should have 100% veneration if he is to work for the health of the people. This is another dimension relating to homeopathy. Thank you.